Hey everyone, my name is Emily Williams, and I'm excited to walk you through a few slides from this year's podcast study report. Our goal with this is to provide you with valuable insights into the latest consumer behaviors and preferences, and show you how these insights can strengthen your marketing and activation efforts of this highly valuable audience. For some background, the podcast study surveys 10,000 podcast listeners in the US per year that are nationally representative by gender, age, race, educational level, and region. And the data is split into two waves, released in April and in October. This study provides a comprehensive view of podcast listening in the US, including behaviors such as the what, when, where, and how adults listen to their podcasts, as well as their motivations for listening, what they want out of the experience, and how they feel about podcast ads, hosts, publishers, and more. The questions are appended as add-ons to the latest MRI-Simmons USA study, unlocking deeper analysis of purchase behaviors and product and brand profiles by our extensive set of over 60,000 variables. Now I'm going to walk you through a few insights we pulled from our annual podcast study report. First things first, podcast listening continues to grow. We've done this study since the end of 2020, and when we started, about 1 in 4 American adults reported listening to podcasts. Now, 1 in 3 adults listen to podcasts, an increase of 32% in just 4 years, and the increase has been steady year over year. 28% of adults have listened in the past week, and this is also up from 22% 3 years ago. Now, when slicing the data, one interesting thing that we found was listenership among Black Americans increased this year at 30% compared to only 25% in spring of 2024. Of course, this intrigued us, and we will continue tracking any demographic trends in future waves to see how the typical listener evolves and how listening shifts within different consumer segments. How people are discovering new podcasts remains consistent year over year. Last year, social media moved to the top way people discover podcasts above recommendations, and that remains true today. While learning about podcasts from other people, either online or in person, is crucial, many listeners are finding their next podcast while listening to podcasts, searching their app's directory, or just searching online for new topics or hosts. Sources of discovery also shift when you look at listeners by generation or race, as younger listeners are more likely to discover new podcasts from influencers they follow, and Asian listeners are more likely to discover via an email they received. Heavy listeners, or those who listen to 6 or more podcasts in a typical week, are more likely to discover from nearly all the methods, most significantly, however, being 172% more likely to discover from magazine ads compared to the average listener. The podcast study included nearly 40 attitudes about podcast preferences and ads, and we added about 20 more this year, covering new topics like preferring unscripted versus scripted pods, looking for other content from publishers they like, and extensions from audio or video podcasts like TV shows, live events, and merchandise. We see that over 3 in 4 listeners want to hear from guests on their podcasts, not just the hosts. They want to watch on their video streaming services. 2 in 3 would watch a TV show or a movie based on their favorite podcasts. And over 3 in 5 would attend a live podcasting event. Over half of listeners are interested in keeping up with their favorite podcasters through email newsletters and would buy merch from their favorite programs. Those who listen to 6 or more podcasts in a week are likely more dedicated or have higher fan levels, as they are 31% more likely than the average listener to buy merch to represent their favorite podcasts. This interest in extensions opens opportunities for publishers and advertisers to take advantage of brand loyalty and reach consumers who are eager to spend in different ways. Now on to ads. Podcast listeners are generally okay with ads in their programs and can find them helpful in finding new products or services. In fact, 1 in 4 listeners typically look for more information or consider a product after hearing a podcast ad, 1 in 5 go to social media or talk to someone to learn more about the product. And 14% actually purchase the product after hearing a podcast ad. Gen Z listeners are more influenced, being 24% more likely to buy a product after hearing an ad. So if you're an advertiser looking for where to place more ads, 1, podcasts are a great place, and 2, focusing on programs that appeal to younger listeners may be beneficial as they are more likely to make it through the funnel of awareness to interest to action. Now, to learn more about and profile specific programs, we measure over 300 podcast programs in the podcast study, and here are some of the top listened to. They come from different publishers, are about different topics, and appeal to a wide range of listeners across the US. If you're interested in finding out how to get your programs included in our next wave, please get in touch with us and we'll discuss how we can help. Now, we cover so much in the podcast study data set and the full report that these slides are pulled from. In addition to measuring listening behaviors, such as how often people listen, what devices they use, where and with whom they listen, their platforms, genres, and which specific programs they're listening to, we also ask about their preferences, what kind of content they want, what kinds of ads they like, and where they like them to be placed, plus a variety of attitudes about hosts, publishers, and advertising. Now, we're consistently taking feedback on what's on clients' minds, and we add new questions every year to make sure we are measuring and providing the most helpful and high-quality insights. The beauty of our podcast study and all of our focus studies is that all data points can be crossed with every data point in our full MRI-Simmons USA study, including all brand and media consumption data. An example of this is looking at listeners of different podcast genres and what drink, snack, and candy brands they over-index on buying in the past 6 months. We find differences across podcast listeners when slicing the data in this way, seeing that comedy listeners are more likely to buy Fanta and Cheez-It Snack Mix, while politics podcast listeners over-index for Yingling, Icebreakers, and Utz Brands chips. Any target in the podcast study, from a behavior to an opinion, can be crossed with any brand or data point in the USA study, revealing deeper insights to inform clients' marketing and activation strategies. In fact, MRI-Simmons is not only a tool for getting your detailed insights, you can also activate any audience in the podcast study or USA dataset via the ad type platform or media partner of your choice. I encourage you to consider how the insights I shared can be leveraged to enhance your business strategies. Get in touch with us at info.ms@mrisimmons.com to learn more about how you can access our podcast study or get your programs measured. We can't wait to hear from you.